I'm Richard King. Been involved with cars for a long time. Volkswagen first, well, American cars first, then Volkswagen, then Porsche. Now only Porsche. I think it's important in life to concentrate, and so we are very heavily involved in classic Porsches. And we've been doing it about 35 years. I'm still interested and still got some passion, and I started this project with a view to taking something to the absolute limit, and at Porsche 911. I bought the donor car not specifically to use for this project. I was in the valley in North Hollywood in California at a friend's place, and I bought a couple of cars from him, and this was a very bad condition 1968 short wheelbase 911, which had been converted to look like a 1980 SC, 911 SC, done very badly, and it had no engine, no transmission, a lot of parts missing. I bought it just on spec because it was a lovely, sound, solid body shell. Then I brought it back to England with a container load of other stuff, and I was looking at it, and it was sort of bugging me a bit, and I thought maybe we could build a project. And I started getting interested in the lightest Porsche 911 to date, which was the 911R, built in '67. Learning more about it, thinking, well, maybe I could make something similar, maybe replicate it. And I kind of thought, well, it would be kind of boring just to replicate it. So I thought I'd go about 10 steps further than Porsche could. And the reason, of course, they couldn't go those 10 steps further is because their car had to be super strong, it had to win endurance races, and it had to be, you know, able to be built in 6 months. This car has taken 5 years. It can be as light and as weak as I want it to be, and can cost as much as I want or as little as I want. So I had a lot better opportunity to build a very light car than Porsche did. When the idea of building the 911R first came about, I thought it was a great idea, and once I started studying real cars, I've seen about 5 of them, I just thought they're very simple cars and actually a bit boring when you look at them. They're nearly all white, and they're just not that interesting. So I thought I'd build a nice bright one and just really push the boundaries and try and build the lightest Porsche 911 that was possible. It taught me a lot along the way, and I had to ask a lot of questions and learn a lot and speak to engineers and get Class 5 experts in. One thing I didn't want to do was use a lot of carbon or titanium or modern components. I wanted to keep it period late 60s. So it's fiberglass and bolts are drilled. There's a tiny bit of titanium and aluminium brake calipers and slight, but you know, they did have them then on the 911R. But these aren't the same ones. But I just learned a lot and just started pushing and pushing, and I had a figure of about probably 700 kilos in my mind when the 911R was about 810, and the lightest one was about 785, I think, Gerard Larousse's car that he ran in the Tour Auto. So I then started thinking, where can I save weight? And I really did start saving weight, and I thought, well, I've got to start with the shell. So I started drilling, and that's when my love of holes came into play. So for about the next year, I was just happily drilling holes. It was a very simple life, but I enjoyed it immensely. In this car, there are actually very few parts that are original Porsche, because it's got the basic body shell, which obviously is, which consists of new floor pans. The other ones weren't damaged, weren't rusty, but they did have quite a few dents and sort of pitting, and I wanted it to be absolutely perfect. So it's got new floors, which are made by Porsche, and the tub and the back wings. But the back wings, again, they're only about half the original back wings because I've lightened them and put different arches on and different light boxes. The rest of the car, well, the motor and the gearbox are Porsche and the suspension is mainly Porsche. Body panels are all new and lightened, and all the windows are Perspex, including the front screen's a special polycarbonate racing screen. Just not many, you know, we made like all the bumper brackets, we've made all the disc brake mounting brackets, the gas tank's new. I mean, I would say about 50% of the car is probably original Porsche and 30% is parts that you can buy off the shelf and 20% is parts we made. We've just weighed this car. Now, I was hoping that I could get it to 599 kilos dry. I haven't managed that yet, but wet, it's up about, I think it was 627, and so we think that's about 615 dry, and I know that I can save another 15 kilos. So I think, it's the lightest at the moment by about 150 kilos, but I think I can get it to my magic 599 later on. I have a few parts on order, lighter parts, and have a few ideas, and I can take the passenger seat out and the mats, and you know, there are ways of getting it a little bit lighter. I think we can do the 599 one day, but not this year maybe. The paint, I really like the Continental Orange. I tried Blood Orange and it was just a bit too rich, but I wanted a bright colour. And I wanted to paint it myself. I still paint steering wheels and small parts of cars. I don't paint the whole car anymore, but so I metal finished all the metalwork myself, all hand filed and hand panel beaten, and I ground it down as well. So I've taken the panels down from 1 millimetre thick down to about 0.6, and then body filed it all after the panel beating, and then I used minimum primer, no filler at all, and minimum amount of paint. So the paint's not special, it's just a 2-pack paint, but there's very little on there and it's lightly flat and polished. The specialist metalwork originally was done by Lionel's Bodyworks, who we worked in conjunction with, and he came in and helped me flat it as well. He's just very good at everything basically on the body side. When I decided that drilling would be a good way of lightening the actual tub of the car, the first thing I did before that was we de-seamed the dash, because the dashboard's made in 2 parts and it has a lip on the top part and the bottom part just above the clocks, and that's just gas welded together in, well, the 356 one is, I'm pretty sure if I remember rightly, the 911 one is, might be spot welded together. So we ground that right off and then put a seam weld right along the dash. Lionel did that. And then I decided to drill a few holes in the dash, and then a couple of people ribbed me that it didn't have enough holes in, there was plenty of room for more. So I took up the mantle and basically just drilled the fuck out of it. It's just, you know, there's not much flat pieces left. But I did strengthen it up as well. So not only did we de-seam it, which has strengthened it, but we also put tabs in across the air intakes in 3 places to give it a lot more strength, and I put a 90-degree bend on the 2 smaller oval holes in the top of the dash. So I think that dash is as strong as the original. The motor was inexpensive. The motor's based on a magnesium case with a 67S crank and later cylinder heads with the bigger valves. Transmission was inexpensive. I had it rebuilt, cost a bit, and the motor cost a bit, obviously, to rebuild, quite a bit. But I didn't really think about it much, but then afterwards I did spend a bit of time adding it all up, and the biggest cost was my labour, which I estimated at something like 200 to 240,000 pounds, depending on, you know, what you book. Like that's booking at the sort of hourly rate here, without the VAT. And the hard parts, the hard costs were probably about 100,000. So that's the region of the cost. But out of my pocket was probably 100,000, which to me sounds like a bargain. I think offers over £1 million if I did decide to sell it. You couldn't really replicate it, but seriously, I'd rather use it for a bit. I've really no thoughts on selling it, but obviously one day I might get bored, and until then though, I do want to get it going and running on the track and running up the quarter mile and go to the shops in it and go to a few car meetings on dry days only, because I think it's going to leak like a sieve. Okay, I'm just going to open the very heavy door. It weighs about 8 kilos, I think, the whole door. It's plastic windows, anodised aluminium top with a few extra holes in. The doors are one-piece fiberglass, which were made by EB Motorsport, replica of the 911R door. Then it's got the aluminium hinges they made as well. And the windows have just got a pull, so it's just this piece of nylon. The leather strap was too heavy for me. Pulls, and then you pull it off like that, and then the window goes down, you pull it up again, and it actually does work. There you go. That's quite good. So you pull that down, and then you can hook it on there so it doesn't go any further. Pull it off, pull it up, and hook it on again. What a great demonstration. Very light car. I mean, every screw is drilled right through the centre and made shorter, and the heads are narrowed, and the actual striker plates are drilled quite heavily. The seats were very light. A friend of mine, Barry Martin, he makes them for us, and they're going to say they're drilled. I made the bases. Very light. I think that's about 3.5 kilos, the whole thing. There's no adjustment on the seats. I just put the driver's one in and sat in there with the pedal assembly and the steering wheel and mounted it where it fitted me, so no one else can drive it, which is great. The whole interior is just painted, apart from 2 rubber floor mats, which will come out for the final weigh-in. It's just literally, this is just smooth metal, so it's actually very, very light. Removed the piece of metal at the back here, drilled all the roof structure. The mirror's my second go. I did have a 68 mirror that was lightened, but I found that one, I think it's off a Goggamobile or something, in the cabinet at work here, and drilled that and put that on. The steering wheel I made, it's one of the ones we make, a copy of a Les Leston, and I lightened it severely, lightened the hub. The steering column, I cut off the turn signal switch and the wipers switch, and they're all on the dash now. Foot pedal I made, gear levers all short and narrowed. In fact, I'm doing a new one that's even lighter, because that one was a bit graunchy, and I just thought I'd use it as an excuse to save another ½ kilo. The battery's a lithium dry battery. It's just literally sitting there with a rubber strap. It's not going anywhere. We put it in the back because it weighs so little, it doesn't matter going towards the rear a bit, and it makes the live cable much shorter, which is quite a heavy bit of copper. The dashboard was just a never-ending task, but I'm glad I did it, the dashboard, because to me, it's as strong as it was, and it's more about the art, the dashboard and the steering column and the wheel. I just think that is where I wanted to be with it. I wanted it to have that finish, so it's a brushed finish with the matte clear lacquer, and that is really what I was aiming at, more art than engineering, if you like. The outside of the body, again, was all smooth metal. It looked like the roof, but it is been painted. We moved the oil tank from the back here, it would have been, to under the wing, like a 72 car. It's a 72 oil tank, but the 911R did the same. They had an aluminium oil tank with baffles in because it was a racing car. This is just a standard 72 tank, but should do the job. No front oil cooler, just too heavy, really, and I'm not going to be racing it. A bit of track day action, but it's not going in for the Tour Auto or the Mille Miglia, so it doesn't have to be that good. Getting down to the wheels here, I mean, I love the wheels. They're just, well, if you said, can you make me some, I'd say yes, I can, but they'll be £12,500 because that's what they cost with the labour. And the studs are drilled, our engineer did that. Titanium nut on the rear axle, aluminium 911 wheel nuts turned down and anodised. The rims are turned down and the sensors are just lightened beyond recognition. You know, the holes are much bigger, so that should be good for cooling the brakes if they ever get hot. All the windows Perspex, 911R replica ones from TRE Automotive, 911 rear from Dave Buzaglu at TRE. Can't remember where I got the door ones. These quarter windows are from him. The front windshield is a race one with a double hard coat on the outside and anti-fog on the inside. That was about £600 from a specialist race windshield place. One wiper, very slightly lightened. Wiper motor I quite like. I think we may open the bonnet now and I'll show you that. One of the guys here, one of our mechanics, John, came up with the idea. He said, oh, there's a nice little wiper motor here, and it was off a 944, but the spindle was different, so we've joined the top piece of the 911 windshield arm to the bottom piece of the 944, and you can't hardly see the wiper motor because it's right under there. It fits so tightly, it's just bolted on literally by the one nut that holds the you know, the whole assembly under the wiper arm. Inside was quite dramatic. I think the bonnet hinges are a bit heavy and they're well over engineered for the weight of the bonnet, which was it's a bit flappy, but it was much more flappy, so we put some bolster strengthening pieces in, which worked. No paint on the inside, of course. Fuel tank's plastic, all custom made mounts by Lionel. He made the strap, I drilled it. Filler necks we made up. I couldn't find any tubing that size, so we rolled a bit up and welded it up. I kind of wanted these holes here. Technically, you could say it slightly weakens the strut housing, but because I've hand dimple dyed these, I think it's actually as strong as original, and it's my Nautilus look, I call it. So this is bare metal, but this is painted. I wanted the contrast of the two. We've got a little 964 RS bonnet strut and wiring all made in-house by Andy Hale with the help of John. All the steering is being turned down the shafts, 6 hours each on all the on both the UJs, just a lot of work. Custom made, drilled Allen cap head screws, custom made little spacers there out of aluminium instead of the big cast steel ones. What else we got here? Well, not a lot basically, there's nothing in there. You know, no catches, just the two rubber ones. Headlights very light. I de-chromed them, extra polished the brass rims and then lightly chromed them. Plastic lenses, all the screws cut short, the housings snipped a bit shorter. They're very light. Just all the holes cut in the front there. Really, under the tank, and a lot of people said, oh, it's ridiculous, all water's going to come in. Of course, there's a seal right around the tank and they're open under there anyway, so water won't come in there. But very light under there, but very strong. Porsche, they even flattened this piece out here so they could get the wiring loom along there. But I've taken it back to having a full lip again, so it's actually stronger than a standard 911. All these holes are dimple dyed, every single one here. So again, I've got more strength probably than the standard sheet steel on the 911. Looks can be deceiving. All these holes, they don't make a lot of difference in weight, but every small saving means that you can get nearer your goal. We've got fiberglass front bonnet, fiberglass fenders, fiberglass doors, fiberglass deck lid. The deck lid's very light, but all these fiberglass panels I hand blocked on the gel coat, and we just made them fit much better. They didn't fit great, to be honest, but we made them fit much better, and then I've hand blocked them all and taken most of the gel coat off so they're almost translucent, and then painted the primer on, but not too thick. Tight, maybe a skim of filler on a couple of low spots, like one on the bonnet and one on one door, and that's it. But none on the steel. Yeah, we got the light little 911R hinges, and then I've drilled them out a bit. Probably could have gone a bit lighter on them. The little aluminium mesh on there, very light. This lid, I mean, I just blocked it all out. I'm really pleased with it, fits great. Gonna change the rear bumper later. Like it, but it's a bit heavy because it was second hand off a friend's race car. It was off Mark Sumter's race car. When he rebuilt it for the 2-litre Cup, he had to put the steel standard ones back on. We've got the handmade aluminium silencers and steel headers, quite light. Original 911R lights, bonded in, not nut and bolted, so we save the weight of them. Bumpers all fiberglass one piece, the short wheelbase RS style. So it hasn't got the flared pieces on it, and we will change it for a lighter one, but at the moment it will do. Engine is very nicely made. It was made in the States actually. Very light. I like the little made in Germany. Oh yeah, made in Germany. Oh nice. Did a lot of work on this rear slam panel as well. Just ground it all out and hand finished it all. All the holes here, a whole row of them are dimple dyed, and the row below, worked it out so the heat can't get from below into the engine bay. It's actually all sealed off underneath with only 4 drain holes to let out any moisture. Got the 964 oil mount for the oil canister. We got the plastic injection stacks that I got them from courtesy of Steve at Jazz, and the little custom filter covers we got. Did a lot of work here, all the drilled bolts on the alternator fan strap and the drilled strap, all the drilled carb linkage. Made up the aluminium plate, that John the mechanic did that, and all the spark box, fuel regulator, pressure regulator and pumps there, and the pressure gauge. Cut down the standard shaft after we'd refinished it. All the fiberglass tinware, the nice little coil strap that's all drilled out, and all the engine mounts all drilled. Titanium bolts. I've only used these 2 bolts and the 2 nuts, and the back axle was in titanium, but it did save quite a bit of weight. I may have put a few more aluminium bolts in the car and maybe a few more titanium, but I'm not crying out to, but I think I could probably save maybe 2 or 3 kilos there quite easily. And if I'm going to go for the 599, I might need that. Custom made little rubber there, which is a bit of Type 4 bus tinware around the engine, you know, the tinware seal, and we used it again at the side here. Worked very well actually. So it seals nicely and nice and light, and looks pretty clean there. But yeah, there's a few holes. I've never even estimated how many holes, but it must be about 15,000, something like that. The seats very rigid, you know, they look as though they won't be, they're very rigid. Probably could have done the upholstery a little bit lighter. My diet's going well. I'm down to 11.5 stone. I want to be 11 when I drive it, just to give me the edge. Maybe just in, you know, a pair of underpants and sunglasses and driving shoes, that'll do. Gear levers, the bolster knob is light, and handbrake's very light. Even drilled the handbrake shoes actually on the back. I could have run just one side even, but I thought, well, just for the odd handbrake turn, I might want to have 2. But yeah, very pleased with how it's all come out. I just want to get driving it now, get it finished, and you know, see how it goes.